Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me this evening is a phenomenal young lady that I've had the pleasure of knowing for quite some time, even though I haven't seen her in a very long time. She is a magnificent singer, songwriter, woman of God, and what's even more special, she is family. And she is in the house tonight to share a little bit of her journey, a little bit of her story, taking some time out of her very busy schedule to hang out with us with the hopes of encouraging and inspiring and uplifting by, again, sharing a piece of her journey with us. So it is my privilege and honor, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce to you our special guest this evening, the beautiful, the talented, my cousin, Taylor Burns. Taylor, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. When you reached out, I was so excited. So thank you so much for reaching out.
Absolutely. And of course, I reached out to your mom and told her, I said that I had, she's like,
Yeah,
yeah, she's like, that's cool. I can't wait. So
yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. You, of
yeah,
course, have a wonderful mom. So, and we got plenty memories I could share with you offline. That I
yeah.
could tell you all about that. But tonight is about you. So we're going to roll with that. So,
Right.
Taylor, before we jump into our segments for this evening, I do want the give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself with the audience. You know, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of give the audience a taste of who is Taylor Burns.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Taylor Burns. My stage name is Tay Soul. I write neo soul Christian music. I actually have an album coming out. I'll speak about that a little bit later. But yeah, I'm also a poet, and I started music when I was very little. I actually learned how to play the piano, how to sing at church. So my dad helped me to get connected to the people that were in the congregation, the pianists, the singers, to kind of help my training. And then I just gained some more training from there, some classical training for piano and singing. And then eventually I just became an independent artist. So I'm from Indianapolis. I moved to Chicago about 2.5 years ago just to really catapult that journey. And I'm here now.
That is awesome. That is awesome. How you liking that vibe in Chicago? Of course, I grew up in Chicago, and then
Really? I didn't
ultimately,
know
as
that.
an adult,
Okay.
moved to
Yeah.
Indianapolis for we were in Indianapolis for 17 years before I relocated here to Texas.
Okay.
So yeah, so I know that that's Chicago, Indy. That's a big switch.
It
But
is.
but
It can be hard. I'm not gonna lie. Being in the city is difficult, but I really love the opportunities here. I love even just being able to go to a cute cafe and be
mm-hmm.
inspired, or just go to a museum on a random night. Things like that keep me going. So
Yes.
there's ups and downs for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So again thoroughly happy for you, and just been following your journey since I've been able to reconnect with you online, and just you're just doing some magnificent and wonderful things, and of
Thank
course,
you.
obviously, what really stands out is the fact that how tied into your faith you are in
Mhm.
this journey. So that just adds the extra beauty of it all, and we're going to again explore that as well as your overall journey as a whole, because I'm pretty certain, I have no doubt in my mind that I'm going to be blessed, and so are my listeners. So I'm
Mhm.
not going to waste any more time. We're going to go ahead and jump into this thing, and so Taylor, when anytime I bring somebody on the show, one of the things that I like to do is take a few moments to reflect back on the beginnings of that story, because
Mhm.
a lot of times our purposes in life, the path that God would have us to be on, there were some indicators, there were some signs of what that was going to look like, oftentimes early on, as far back as childhood,
Yeah.
even though back then we don't necessarily kind of connect the dots or piece it all together.
Right.
It doesn't always make sense, but as you move further into that walking in your purpose, you begin to reflect sometimes on some of those moments, and you think, okay, now it makes sense why I had to experience this. Oh,
Right.
now it's starting to come together why I had to encounter whatever that other situation was. So with that said, if you would take us back to your childhood days, in young girl growing up in Indianapolis, kind of tell our audience, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there was any particular challenges that come to mind that you'd like to share, you can do that as well. Just kind of give us the
Okay.
foundational basis of where your story begins.
Yeah, so I grew up in Indianapolis, right in the heart of Indianapolis, in the suburbs. Honestly, my childhood was phenomenal. Like we would go to Disneyland. We had a little playground in the back. I grew up mostly around boys, so we were doing all kinds of things in the backyard. Had dogs. At one point, we got a bird. Just childhood dream, honestly. I have no complaints as far as like my upbringing, my family. I think the biggest challenge hit around when I was 11 years old. I moved to a different middle school than all the rest of my friends, and during that time, I started to get bullied. And I went from being just like a super yellow, happy kid, not like didn't know what like. I wasn't necessarily sheltered. My parents loved for me to explore, but I didn't understand like adversity. Like everything was just great, you know. And so I started to get bullied, and that really threw me for a loop because I got bullied for being smart and kind of like quiet and like a little awkward, you know, that's that weird phase. And in like prior to that, that's when I was kind of praised, like to be the smartest kid or to do the right thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And within that time, I actually started facing some health challenges. I would get really bad headaches, and I didn't know why. I couldn't even, they were like as bad as migraines, but I would keep changing my glasses prescriptions. Nothing would work. And so eventually, my doctors decided to get a CAT scan because they noticed that some other things were off, as well as like my mood, the way that I went from being super happy, even though like, you know, I was bullied, I was able to overcome that through love, through friendship, but there was just something still wrong. And so they did the CAT scan and they actually found a brain tumor. And this brain tumor is in the front. I still have it. It's in the front of my brain. It's called a pituitary adenoma. So it is one of my glands is enlarged, and it's the gland that controls your hormones, your emotions, all of those things. So you can only imagine what it's like going through adolescence and having this issue. So I would say that was the catapult of so many different things that led to adversity that I still struggle with, but also so many awesome ways that God has helped me and delivered me from myself in a lot of ways, but also just a lot of hardship, you know. So I think that this was the time where I began to search for something deeper. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
went from just being a happy-go-lucky kid, just love to have fun, love to be athletic, love to play. And then it turned to wondering like, why am I here? You know, like these
Right.
deeper existential questions that 11-year-olds don't ask, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very different from everyone else. My health got so bad at one point that I only went to school 3 days out of the week. I had to get like permission from my principal for all the treatments, different things I needed to get done. Um, but this is when I fell in love with music. This is when I fell in love with songwriting. This is not quite yet when I really fell in love with God and my journey in that way, but it helped me to dig deeper into the why of life and search for just all the ways that God has allowed me to pour out and be poured into through the talents that He's given me. So,
That is awesome. That is
yeah,
awesome, and I appreciate, of course, your transparency and sharing. I think what's most, that stands out to me, I should say, about what you just shared was the fact that, not that you were unique in the sense that, about being a kid who got bullied, because there are a lot of kids that get
right.
bullied. But I think what I find interesting, and I'm tapping into this from a spiritual perspective, and you may have
Mm-hmm.
perhaps had some of this same level of reflection, is that you went from feeling like you fit in to all of a sudden not feeling like you fit in.
Yeah.
Because I was smart, because I was
Mm-hmm.
quiet, because I was this, because I was that. And when you're a child going through that, it can feel very, lonely. It can feel very
Right.
isolating. But when you look at it from a spiritual perspective and you fast forward in life, you kind of have to ask yourself, you know what? Maybe there was a reason I
Right.
wasn't quote unquote fitting in,
Yeah.
because I wasn't meant to fit
Right.
in.
Yep.
When you are one of God's kids, you're set apart.
Never going
You're
to.
set
Yeah.
up in such a way to where you're supposed to be the odd one in the room, but the
Yep.
odd one in a good way. Now,
Right.
the people around you may not understand it, and even you yourself, in going in
Yeah.
that moment, you don't understand. You think that there's something wrong with you,
Right.
when in fact everything is right with you. It's just God,
Mm-hmm.
just working through you, setting you apart, getting you to embrace the gifts that he is revealing inside of you, letting you know
Yeah.
that, hey, this thing is getting ready to elevate. You just need to follow me. You just need to walk my path. And as you're going to see, as you age, as you get more experiences in life, it's going to all connect together, and you're going to see why you were set apart, why that matters.
Yeah.
And you begin to get used to it in the sense of not looking at it as a bad thing, but
Right.
wearing it as a badge of honor, if you will,
Yeah.
for because you're doing a work of God. In this case,
Mhm.
like what you're doing right now. So, and this is part of the reason why I do like to go back to those beginning moments because. Again, as a kid, it doesn't make sense. Hey, I
No,
just
it
want to
made
have
no
fun. I
sense.
just want to be like
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me being this way? What's wrong with me being that
Right.
way? Nothing is wrong with it.
Yeah.
Just because people don't understand it doesn't make it wrong.
Right.
You were just walking in and just trying to embrace and identify where all this was taking you. What does this all mean? So I'm
Mhm.
glad that you brought that up, and that we have a chance to kind of peel the layers apart on that, because I think it's
Yeah.
really important for us to truly understand that just being the set apart when being the odd one in the room doesn't make you abnormal or
Right.
strange or wrong in some type of way.
Yep.
So appreciate you sharing that. So Taylor, as you know, of course, you go through life as you've had a great life coming up, and that doesn't surprise me that you shared that, because, of course, I know your parents, and I know
Yeah.
the support system that you have around you with other family members. So it doesn't
Mhm.
surprise me at all that you had the upbringing that you had. But as you know, when you get into adulthood, even as being a young adult as yourself, every now and then in the midst of the experiences that we encounter over the course of our lives, every now and then we get hit with something that's a little bit more heavier, a little bit more
Right.
intense, in the sense that when we feel it, when we experience it, we may actually have a sense of helplessness,
Yep.
feeling like, I don't know how I'm going to navigate this thing, how I'm going to get around this. This is not something that I can buy my way out of, make a phone
Right.
call and get my way out of.
Nope.
I can't run from it. It's me in this moment of adversity, and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So with that said, tell us about a time where that's exactly how you felt. Like, I'm going
Yeah.
through a moment and situation in life where I didn't see a way out. Obviously, you're here today to just tell the story, so we know we can trust that God had allowed you to
Yeah.
manage your way through it. But maybe back then, even being a woman who has embraced her faith at an early age, even believers struggle, from
Right.
time to time, dealing with
Yeah.
moments of adversity. That doesn't We're
Yeah.
not excluded from that. So if you would share with us a story where you went through that type of experience, and what was ultimately the turning point when you began to see some light at the end of the tunnel and coming up out of that situation.
Yeah, well, I've had plenty of experiences like that. It's interesting because I am young. I'm 25, but lived a lot of life from a lot of adversity. I think that we really learn, grow, and mature through adversity. A lot of people don't like that answer, but it's true. But I would say one of the turning points of my life was in college. A little bit before college, I was training to play D1 volleyball. So I played so sorry. I played varsity volleyball since my freshman year, became captain my sophomore year. I played AAU and I was always on the elite team. I was an outside hitter. I could jump super high, was super strong, was always just like the number one athlete. So in my pridefulness, I remember in my junior year, I was just like playing around with my friends, and remember we were just playing volleyball, and I made a comment. I was like, I'm honestly in the best shape of my life. I probably will never get injured. Surely enough,
Mm.
surely enough, tryouts come around, and I hit the best spike of my life. Like I hit like 10-foot line, which people that are only like above 6 foot can hit. Perfect form. I mean, it was like the best spike. Like if any college recruiter would have seen that, they would have taken me. Um, and my shoulder came out of socket and then it came back in, and I was like, okay, that's a little weird because I've never had an injury. I've never had issues with my shoulder. I'm just gonna press through, do some shoulder exercises, go to physical therapy. During that time, a D1 college reached out to me and they wanted me to come shadow them and to play with their team so that they could basically sign me on Eli University. And I was super excited. I'm like, you know what? Let me know when it comes. They were like, okay, well, let's wait a few months out. We'll wait for you to get done with traveling for volleyball. And then we'll get you kind of accustomed and then see if you're a good fit. And then we'll sign you on if you are. And I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. I've been training for this since I was 11, like I am her, like, but just prideful. And in a way, I was super fit. I was very athletic. You know, I had all that going for me. But the thing is I really just wanted the glory for myself, for my own security, just to have that deeper reason why to live. But when you place that in anything but God, it never
Mm-hmm.
it never works out. So long story short, what ended up happening is by the end of that travel tryout, all of my ligaments tore my shoulder from the back to the front. I still have
Oh.
scars like up and down my shoulder. So I lost that scholarship. And so, of course, I just kept pressing forward, pushed myself a little bit too hard, I will be honest. And I ended up getting injured again on the same shoulder. This time I
Mm.
ripped another ligament in my bicep. And so that second injury wasn't nearly as painful, but the emotional pain was very deep because now it's my senior year. Obviously, if you're injured by your senior year, you can't get signed anywhere, you know? So at this point, I'm like, what is this all for? You know, I'm going to go to a college I don't really want to go to anymore. I've worked so hard, all these things. So I get to college. I can't really do much physical activity because I still have to have that second surgery. But my health starts to increase because I didn't realize that because of the hormonal condition I have, a lot of the athleticism was sustaining my balance. And when I stopped, my body freaked out. And so um, I ended up, I think my freshman year, I gained like 50 pounds, something crazy. So I went from having like a six pack to being like 50 pounds overweight.
Wow.
And I became super insecure about it. My mental health took a plunge. And with that, my grades started to go down. I went from being just a student that carried like a 3.8 and above. I used to have like 4.2s and all that crazy stuff throughout high school to having like a 2.8. And I was like,
Mm.
what is going on? Like, so no longer could I put my confidence in my athleticism, my looks, my smarts, and then even my with my music and things like that, I really started to struggle because I wasn't getting the vocal training I was having. I definitely wasn't like singing worship songs or anything like that during the time. So my voice was just not doing well. And I didn't have a piano near me. So it was like everything I had put my confidence in at that point was just stripped, like completely. Friends left, just everything. It was just a complete Job moment. Like it was like
Wow.
stripped of pretty much everything. My sophomore year of college comes around. By this time I've gained about 80 pounds. And so I'm like considered obese at this point. And I'm going to doctor's appointments. My doctors are telling me it's just because I'm eating too much. And I'm like, I'm trying to work out. Like, you know, I'm doing what I can. I'm managing my diet. And you're telling me just because I'm eating too much, like, how can a person just gain 80 pounds in a year? Like, that's
Right.
crazy. So they didn't have any answers for me. And so at that point, I just became very like suicidal. I was just like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand why. I don't understand what's the point. There's no getting out of this. At that point, my organs started to have issues like my heart, my liver, like my body was just like breaking down. No one knew what to do. Like my family just felt so bad because they wanted to help, but like no one knew what to do to help. And I remember at this time, like I said, I started to have suicidal ideations, and I'm super grateful for my family because they know me so well that they were like, "Oh no, you're coming home from college
Right.
because you're
Right.
talking weird. Like this is not you." Like, so I came home. I started to go to therapy, started to get the help I needed, but I tried to then go into some eating disorders. So I was just scavenging for anything just to help. And that didn't work either. And I just got to a point where I was like, I really have nothing left. Like all I can remember is what my dad taught me when I was little. It was about God. And I was like, I have to try this. I don't know what this looks like because I grew up in church. I grew up in a Baptist church. I learned the basics about Jesus, but I never had a personal relationship with God. It was just like I knew
Mm-hmm.
about him, you know? So I was like, something is going to have to heal me because my life is just going to continue to get worse. And I just can't continue to live like this. Like I'm lonely. Like I have nothing to hang on to at this point. So I remember going back to school. I switched campuses that were closer to my family so I could stay home so they could make sure I was okay. And I remember just praying for the first time, like sincerely just praying. And I was just asking God, I was like, can you please help me to find people that are going to help me to get closer to you, but also just like friends. Like I just need support. I need like mental and physical healing. I don't know what else to do. And then I was like, and I know that he wanted me to seek after him to really show him, that I wanted this. So I was listening to spiritual podcasts. I was reading the Bible, didn't know what I was reading. I was reading like KJV. I thought that was the only version. I didn't know. Asking questions. I would just follow random people on social media, just asking them questions. I just did this for like a month and a half straight. Like if I wasn't in class, I was doing something about God, and it wasn't even that I like knew what I was doing. I was just like, I'm trying to get your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And this one day, it was a super random day. My attitude was so foul that day. Honestly, I was just like fed up with life, and I'm a very routine person, so I usually go to the cafeteria like in between classes, just because it's like quiet, no one's usually in there. But for some reason, which I know it was God, but I just kept having this weird feeling like I had to sit in this specific place on campus. And I was like, I don't know why I keep feeling like I need to go over here, but I'm going to go over here. Like, I don't know why I just feel so, like, it felt like I was just so, like, not at peace unless I went over there. So I go over there, and then this random guy comes up to me, and he's like, hey, and he's like asking me all these questions. He's like, what year are you? When did you get here? Are you from Indianapolis? And me with my horrible attitude, I'm thinking he's trying to hit on me. He wants something. And he's like, actually, I just reached out to you because we're having a Bible discussion, and we're inviting people. We're new on campus. I just wanted to invite you. I saw you over here by yourself. I see your Bible out. Figured you might be interested. And I just jumped up. I grabbed all my stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, like God,
Wow.
that was the first time I felt like God actually heard me. And so went to their discussion, and there was a woman there that she helped facilitate the Bible talk discussion. It was just like an open discussion about basic topics in life. And I asked her to study the Bible with me, and she did. And she just helped me to understand the like foundational principles about just a relationship with God, but also like what the Bible is, how to read it. And it honestly changed my life from there. Like I was able to get the treatment I needed, I think maybe a year later, for my health. And I like lost all the weight that I had gained. I was also just healed from that mindset of just what life was about. I had a deeper purpose, a deeper reason. And I was able to just heal so much that I began to heal others. I actually went into full-time ministry when I first graduated college, because of it. I'm not serving at that capacity. I'm more so doing music ministry now, but it really completely changed my life in a way that I never knew God could answer one specific, just desperate prayer. So, yeah,
Wow. Wow. I did not know all of that.
yeah.
That is a phenomenal testimony. Again, I appreciate so much your transparency and sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we need to hear this story. This is perfect timing because I mean, I love how you first of all, I love how you started off by acknowledging the fact that things in life were going well for me. I mean,
Yeah,
even from the beginning of the show, you pretty much, hey, wonderful childhood. Yeah,
right.
had a couple of issues health wise, but overall wonderful childhood. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going off into college. I'm volleyball star,
Right.
academic. I'm rocking on that end. Everything is rolling. I'm feeling myself.
Yeah.
I'm feeling myself, but it's interesting that you point that out because for those who don't understand, that's usually the moment when God has to,
Get your
step
attention.
in and
Yep.
break us down. Not because he's
Yep.
trying to spoil the fun or anything like that,
Right.
but sometimes in the midst of our success, in the midst of our accomplishments and our accolades, we can get so full of us, so
Yep.
prideful. Actually, the word that you use, we get so full of that pride to where we lose sight of who actually is responsible for even
Yeah.
bringing us to this point. And
Yep.
so, as you already know by your studying of God's word, that He's a jealous God, and if He
Yeah.
sees that we are a little bit distracted and we looking
Right.
at ourselves and looking at our accomplishments a little bit too much and not focused on Him, not giving Him that credit, that acknowledgement of what He's done for us.
Yeah.
Sometimes he'll allow that storm to come in our lives to kind of shake things up,
Mhm.
with the whole purpose of, again, not to destroy us, but to
Right.
break us down and to redirect our focus and redirect our attention, which is exactly what he did with you. I mean, he broke down that volleyball career. He
Yep.
broke down, you had this perfect, if you from a worldly perspective, this perfect
Yeah.
athletic figure, and
Yep.
added some pounds on you, had you feeling all
Yep.
kind of way. He let you get to your lowest of low,
Yeah.
not again, not to the point where you cause bodily harm to yourself, but
Right.
just enough to where, okay, now I have your attention, and in just in
Mhm.
that moment of having your attention, in the most oddest and strangest way, because you made mention, I'm a woman of routine.
Yeah. So it
And
was
so,
so weird
yeah,
for me. Yeah.
if for you to be somebody of routine and then to do something and to be drawn to do something out of
Yep.
routine, this wasn't even like a just a random thing. Like
No.
you said you were feeling that
Yeah.
nudge, that pull. You didn't know where it was coming from,
Nope.
but you were feeling this. Go over here and sit here. Like
Mhm.
you said, that is not by accident. That is not by
Right.
luck. For those who understand what it means to be in relationship with God, for those who know what it means to have God, come for you because he's wanting to try to bring you close into him. That's how that kind of thing happens. That was
Yeah.
not an accident for you to be in that particular space in that particular moment in time, to be approached by somebody that you didn't know, that you
Right.
thought had other intentions, but yet I'm just here to invite you to Bible
Right.
study. Because even in that moment, you're kind of feeling yourself like, he over here trying to hit on me.
Right.
No,
And he's
no, he
like,
wasn't trying to hit
girl,
on you, girl. I'm
no.
trying to invite you to some Jesus over here. That's what I'm trying to do, you know. But it's it's
Yeah.
it's awesome that that invitation made all the difference in the world, because it starts a completely different transformation in your life, as you
Yeah.
stated. Even though I grew up, quote unquote, in the church, like many of us, grow
Yeah.
up in the church, but you growing up in the church because your parents made you go to church and all that is
Yeah.
not the same as you having your own personal relationship. And so God understands that, and he intercedes in our lives at some point in time where he says, okay, it's time for you to have this relationship with me, not because your parents said so,
Right.
not because your friends or some other influencer said so, but because this is something that you wanted to voluntarily do. And
Yeah.
and and, and I love how you spoke to how you were seeking God,
Mhm.
without even knowing what you were doing. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm, I'm reading. I don't know exactly what I'm getting
Yeah.
out of this, but
Had
I'm
no
reading.
idea what I was
I'm
doing.
asking questions. I don't know if it's the right questions, but I'm
Yeah.
asking questions. I'm following what I thought were, influencers or what have you, people who were following in the faith. You know, that is powerful, because a lot of times people think that to seek God when you don't know him, that it has to be this real formal
Right.
process, like, oh, I have to be degreed up, I have to have
Mm.
memorized all of the
No.
scriptures before I can seek him. No,
Yeah.
just that's the whole concept of coming as you are. Just come as you are. Ask what you want to ask, seek what you want to seek, and the more you show your effort, the more you show your persistence in pursuing that relationship, he's loving that. He's going to
Yeah.
reveal to you what you need to know. And here you are now, ministering through
Mhm.
music, you've taken all of that pain, all of that, all of those stormy times of, again, your volleyball situation, your health situation, and look how God has just transformed all of that. It's almost like it's a distant memory,
Yeah. It's
and but
insane.
but but that's how he works. And like I said, to see somebody at your age come to that realization, it is powerful. And for any of my
Mm.
listeners who, are in your age group, or perhaps, very nearby, pay attention to this example. This
Mm.
is not some type of unique, one stop thing. You too can have this same kind of experience, but you got to be
Yeah.
willing to open yourself up. You got to be willing to put that pride to the side.
Yeah.
Stop getting in that moment of feeling ourselves, because we done all
Yeah.
been there. I done had my
Of
feeling
course.
myself moment,
Everybody.
and God had to humble me.
Yeah.
Oh, you think you all that? Well, let me show you.
Right.
Let me show you just how all that you think you are.
Right.
But you realize, again, in the long run, as time goes on, you say, you know what, that's exactly what I needed. and
Yeah.
i'm and I'm so glad that you were open to receive God, and just the transformation that made in your life. And just look at what you're doing now, and you're still just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
You are still just, you're not even close to being done. He's not even close to revealing to you everything that is going to, take place in your life, and how you're going to change lives and impact people.
Right.
So we have to look at our storms, as I share this all the time. We have to look at our storms not as negative events, but as opportunities to
Right.
grow, to develop, to become better versions of ourselves. Because as we get battle tested, spiritually battle tested,
Mm-hmm.
and we begin to rack up those victories, those testimonies, that allows God to be able to use you in a more expanded
Yep.
version in ways that you never thought, you never imagined.
Ever.
That I'm sure in your prime volleyball days and singing and all that, you probably never envisioned
Oh
you
my
being
gosh.
a ministry
Absolutely
leader, or
not. Oh my
pulling,
gosh.
sharing.
My life is so different than what I thought it would be like.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I am curious about, and I don't know how much how much this has played a role or not. Of course, with our family, traditionally, and I
Mm-hmm.
and I know you're different, and of course I'm different as well. But
Yeah.
traditionally, a good bulk of our family, from a spiritual perspective, has been more in the line of Jehovah Witness, and so
Yeah.
I found it interesting the path that you've taken. And I'm not here to criticize one over the other, but
Right.
I am curious to know, when you went on this path, how did, I know what your immediate family may felt, but like the
Yeah.
surrounding others, and you ain't got to call names or
Right.
anything. How did that get received? Like when you started, ministering through music, and it was clearly not in the same line of
Right.
Jehovah Witness. Did you get any kind of, I
Oh,
don't know, backlash, or
so
kind of nudge,
I
like, why you
faced a
doing
lot
that?
of,
All of
yeah.
that kind of stuff.
My like when I first really at that time in college, I faced a lot of persecution, especially
Mm-hmm.
for someone being young, or I would make certain comments, or, and I wouldn't say specifically just with our family, but just in general, like
Mm-hmm.
sharing my faith on campus, or I can't even tell you how many different ways and, things, or friends that I had, and they were like, you know what, like, you think you're better because you're Miss
Uh-huh.
Holy now.
Right,
You could
right.
just da 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 da. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But there's so many scriptures about persecution. So I'm like, if Jesus went through it, best believe I'm going to. But as
Mm-hmm.
far as our family goes, I was a little nervous about that because I know that so many people can get so divided, and Jesus
Mm-hmm.
did come to divide. A lot of people think that he came to bring peace. He did, but there's scriptures about biblical division as well. And so, I think what helped me to navigate just persecution or people having personal opinions or feelings towards me was, one, am I truly living the life of Jesus to where they can openly talk to me about it, not in a religious way, not in a way kind of like a Pharisee, not in a prideful way, like, oh, I'm better because
Mm-hmm.
none of that. That's not Jesus at all. So I want, that's the first thing I did was self-reflect, because I think people are so quick to uh, when they receive things to want to regurgitate it. And so I had to self-examine, because I'm like, okay, well, if certain people are saying these things, okay, am I actually doing it? Because if I
Mm-hmm.
am, like, God won't be mocked. I've learned that the hard way.
Yes, yes.
Um, and then I was like, okay, well, if I'm not, then two, this is actually just an opportunity for me to share my faith. I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes we can get so inwardly focused that we think about how it affects us rather than how it can affect someone else. And so a lot of these opportunities actually became into opportunities for me to share my faith. And that's what persecution did in the first century. Like, it actually is what catapulted the gospel
Mm-hmm.
because people were so busy trying to kill off Christians, figure out who these Christians were that actually accidentally heard about the
Right.
gospel because they were so focused on their mission. So I was like, that's what I need to be doing. And I think at first it was kind of like, yeah, okay, this is just a phase, da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And then 5 years later, it's so funny because a lot of those same people are like, I look up to you.
Right.
like, this is so great. This has inspired me. But I think that I just think of the scripture in Second Timothy. It's your life and doctrine. I don't think it's just doctrine or
Mm-hmm.
just your life. Like, I think some people can just live based on they can live a certain way, but their actions don't reflect what they say they believe. And then there's some people that um, live based on how they believe, but their actions aren't even really godly, in
Right.
the sense of like actually being compassionate, actually, loving others, things like that. So I think what helped was my life in doctrine, but I had to persevere through a lot of stuff, things I didn't expect at all. Like, I
Yes.
thought it was just sunshine and rainbows. Like, going into it, I was like, I'm free. Like, here we go. And then I just started getting punches. And I was like, what is this? Like,
Right.
don't you guys see my life is changing? But In the end, it was all worth it. The perseverance was worth it, and even the backlash, because like I said, they became opportunities for me to share my life, share my faith, share what I actually believe rather than what people think I believe, and just make peace with others. If they have any questions or they had any animosity or even things church hurt that they were struggling with, just sometimes sharing your story and your heart with someone helps them to soften their heart, and then you can get to the meat of what's really going on rather than just all the fire and arrows they're throwing at you.
Yes,
So,
yes. Love that. I love
yeah.
that. And I'm glad you didn't allow the naysayers, the opinionators and all of those
Mm-hmm.
others, deter you from, continuing to, like you said, to persevere, to keep, doing what you felt like God was leading you to do. So
Yeah.
that's awesome, because like you said, it, being a believer and walking in your purpose is going to bring, some haters. It is going to bring
Right.
some persecution. That's just a part of it. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you pointed out the fact that, hey, if Jesus can go through what he went through,
Right.
then who am I to really complain? Because I know
Right.
I couldn't have done
What he
what he
did.
did,
Yeah.
So when I look at my little gripe here and somebody feeling
Yeah.
some kind of way there, I think I can handle that a whole lot better
Right.
than what he had to put himself through for us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I guess the part two to that, to the question that I had here with this, was specifically, with your music ministry, what made you
Mm-hmm.
go into the direction that you went into it? Because again, this is one of
Yeah.
those controversial, topics in the church,
Right.
where when you go outside of, what is considered to be the
Mm-hmm.
traditional path, and is that real Christian music? Is it a
Mm.
mockery of gospel? Because you're more
Yeah.
into sort of neo soul R&B kind of
Mm-hmm.
vibe. You've done covers that you've
Mm-hmm.
made Christian based, but it's
Right.
off of what is traditionally secular music. Have you gotten
Right.
any? So I'm kind of curious, what drew you to that,
Mm-hmm.
and has there been any? Have you had some challenges even in that, the style that you've chosen to go
Right.
with that? I'm kind of curious what that journey has been like for you.
Um, Honestly, I would say just the first part, what started me with that is, like I said, since I was 5, music has always been a spiritual thing for me. So whether I was with God or without God when I was younger, I always went to music, always went to songwriting. That was always an outlet for me. And then when I realized I could connect to God on a deeper level through it, that just made things like 10 times deeper for me. So what made me really go into that style, it was not intentional, to be quite
Okay.
honest. Since I've written music, I think that's always kind of been my style. So it wasn't an intentional, like, okay, what genre? Let's do this. I want to make
Mm-hmm.
it attractive to this person. It's just part of who I am and my expression.
Okay.
So I think what really drew me to do Christian covers and things like that was so many times, especially being my age, people are like, they think so much is lame when you're a
Mm-hmm.
Christian, or
Yeah.
like when you live a holy life or set apart life. And so I did those covers more so to show people, like, this is still a vibe, this is still a bop, but I'm not going to talk about those things. I'm not going to do those.
Yes.
That's not the way that I live. But you can still have fun in Christ. Like, freedom in Christ is the whole, like, that's what God wants, is a life to the full. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love to show my life to the full through Christ, So I haven't had a lot of pushback, quite honestly. I wouldn't be surprised if I did, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I did. I think as God allows my platform to grow, I'm sure I will, especially when people are either more conservative about music choices, or they're on the other side and they're like, why are you trying to like ruin the song? But I think that it's had a really great turnout, because I'm very big on lyrics. Like, I'm very big
Mhm.
on like soul feeling music, like chords that hit and it's just like, ooh, that's a good chord. Like, you feel the
Right. Right.
music. But I'm very big on words as well. Like, as God is, that's why he gave us the Bible. So putting that together, it just kind of happened. It wasn't like an intentional thing, but
Okay.
as far as what I put out, what I choose to cover, what I don't, that's really the inspiration behind it. Is I really want to inspire someone through the words that I'm singing. I want people to realize that a life of freedom, a life to the full. Like, it's really truly done through Christ. You really can't do it any other way.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want people to feel inspired and not just digest it on a mind level, like I'm just preaching to someone, but on a heart level.
I love that. I can totally relate to you when you said, you're more about the lyrics and the
Yeah.
and how it, tugs at your soul, because
Mm-hmm.
one song in particular, because I've had a chance, of course, to, to be on your page and check out some of
Yeah.
your some of your covers, and one cover that you did, I had always, for some time now, it's one of my favorite songs, but
Mm.
something I always thought had a spiritual uh vibe to it, even though it wasn't originally presented that way,
Yeah.
which is "Can You Stand the Rain?"
I knew you were gonna say that.
I mean, I have many
I
days.
love that
There's
song.
yes. I mean, now we know how New Edition originally did it, and it's
Right.
one of my favorite songs. But I've actually, in my mind,
Yeah.
played the lyrics out. I'm
It's
like, that could
spiritual.
easily be spiritual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sunny days,
Music
everybody
is
loves them.
spiritual.
Can you
Like,
stand the
music is
rain?
spiritual.
Yes,
Yeah.
storms will come. This we know for sure. That is
Yeah.
like, that
Yeah.
was easy. And
Yeah.
then, but to hear it like actually be done in real time, and
Mm-hmm.
the way you sang it, I was just like, if you didn't know that New Edition wrote that song, and you
Right.
were just singing that song as a Christian song,
Mm-hmm.
that would be easily received, just
Mm.
because of the vibe of the lyrics, the
Right.
power of the lyrics. And
Yep.
so, and of course you have multiple other songs where you've done something similar, but that one in particular really jumped out
Yeah.
at me,
That
because
one
I've
hit home.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was just like, oh, she's on it. She's hitting it right there. That's exactly. And I like to, again, I like your approach, because just kind of thinking outside of the box of traditional, because I think a lot of times, again, in the church,
Mm-hmm.
we kind of get locked in on, you know keeping things traditional the same way
Right.
as they've always been. And the reality is that, times have changed, people have changed. And
Yep.
I'm not saying that you want to go so far out of the realm where you
Right.
begin to distort who God is, his word, or
Yeah.
anything like that. But I don't think God has any issue with you exercising some level of creativity, especially if it's going to reach,
Yeah.
some people that may otherwise, be
Wouldn't be
turned off,
reached.
or wouldn't be reached,
Yeah.
because they just can't connect. I mean, I have
Mm-hmm.
a 17-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
She's not feeling all of the old time churchy stuff. She's
Right.
not interested
Yeah.
in that, But I can see her vibing off of some of the music that you
Yeah.
have done. So I mean, it's just a different just a different taste. And again, we've seen many people in the quote unquote Christian circle, gospel music circle, that have gone and used various styles and whatnot. And to be honest, in my opinion, some, I think, have maybe perhaps gone too far to try
Yeah.
to
I agree with
bring
that.
everybody
Yeah.
in. I feel like when I listen to your music, I feel like you struck a great
Mm.
balance. It was creative to where it was clearly different,
Right.
but you didn't try to make it to try to fit into the world. You
No.
still kept it. You still kept it godly. If my,
Yeah.
in my for whatever my two senses were, but I feel you felt
Thank
you
you.
kept it that way, but kept it tasteful,
Yeah.
kept it classy, kept it. You're
Mm-hmm.
not out there singing the word,
Yeah.
but then giving me an image or a visual that say you thinking about
Gotcha.
something completely
Right.
different.
Yeah.
Because you talked
Yeah.
about that earlier, about your actions lining up with
Yeah.
what you're speaking to. So I think you've done an excellent job in that balance. And so,
Thank you.
again, I appreciate your approach with that.
Mm-hmm.
So Taylor, when you do find yourself, and you kind of talked about this a little bit, when you do find yourself facing challenges, whether it's some of the heavy stuff that you discussed earlier, or if it's just the day to day lifing type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that you like to do? That just that regiment, that routine that you like to flow with, that kind of helps you process and deal with whatever that difficult moment or challenging time is, so that you can, again, process it in a healthy and a productive way. What works best for you?
Yeah. So I would say, what comes to mind first is Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and everything will be given to you. That whole passage is about worrying and life and all this stuff. I think the foundation that keeps me level is every single day, every morning, I pray and read my Bible every day.
Mm.
Like, I don't think I've missed a day in the last 5 years, even if I only
Wow.
have 20 minutes. And I don't say that to boast or anything, but it's become a necessity. It's like my sustenance. Like, you know, people say like their daily bread. Like, that's my daily
Mm-hmm.
bread. And so when I face adversity, I think I mentioned Job before, but I've had a lot of Job seasons even recently, and I have to realize that God is sovereign, and either He allowed it to happen or He made it happen. So if I'm
Yeah.
really mad about it, I gotta be mad at God
Mm-hmm.
because He's in control, you know. So there's only two ways to really respond to this: is to either surrender or to like fight and be mad and all this stuff. Which I think being upset and things like that, it's a part of a human emotion. I'm not an advocate for just pushing through. Like, I think I have to process, you know. So I think the first thing is I have to pray a lot. I ask God questions in my prayer. I'm like, what is this about? Like, you know, like respectfully, you know, but I ask God, like, how do I get through this? What are you trying to teach me? I think that's the biggest question I always ask is like, what are you trying to teach me? And what is it that you want me to grow through this, that like you specifically allowed this to happen? And then I also read scriptures about someone else going through it, because there's so many examples of people facing adversity in scriptures, women, men, young people, older people. It might not have exactly your situation, but it shows there are many examples of a good way to respond and a bad way to respond. And then I also have to allow myself to get the help that I need. I'm not this like overly spiritual, this is that. Like, I'm just a human, as we all are. I'm just a sinner like everybody else. So I have a group of awesome friends and people, mentors that I go to when I'm going through things I've never been through before, or I'm facing a wall and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, it's hard to pray right now. Like, what would you do? Because I don't know what to do.
Right.
Like, so I usually go to them and just share. I just stay open with people that are going to push me spiritually, but also love me the way that Jesus loves. Like, we don't always need a lecture. We don't always need like a teaching. Sometimes you just need somebody to pray with you. Like, I think that's one of the purest forms of love. Is like when people have prayed with me while I'm like sobbing. Like, man, I don't think I've felt anything like that before. And then I would also say just allow myself to that. I think those are the moments where I really dive into my creativity, and I know that it's Satan when I don't, because whenever I have a blockage and I'm just like, I don't feel like singing, I don't feel like creating, I'm like, wow, like that's what he wants. He wants me to be so discouraged that I can't, write something, or I can't use this outlet God has given me to dig deeper and go deeper with him. Like, it's trying to like block me off. So I have to force myself, even if I'm not creating something and I'm just singing, like while I'm crying, while I'm going through it, I just do it. I just force myself to do it. And I would also say, like, I'm a big advocate of health in general. I think spiritual, mental, and physical health are so tied together. And I know that because of someone that has dealt with mental and physical challenges, and then knowing what it's like to be spiritually healthy and seeing, like, I think I'm just super sensitive to it because it is part of my journey. So I try to go to the gym. I'm like, I'm feeling a little too angry right now. Let me go work this off at my
Right.
lunch break, so then I can really have a clear mind to pray, have a clear conscience, talk to people the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, like I said, my mental health, like, I'm a huge advocate of therapy. Obviously, don't go to a therapist that's going to be talking crazy and, encourage you to do crazy stuff. I always let them know I'm a woman of faith up front. So it's something I talk about a lot because they're all intertwined. God is so intentional in the way that he has made us, and also the resources he gives us and what's around us. So I always know that my mental health, yeah, that is something that, you know, is a spiritual thing. But then there's sometimes where I'm like, I need a therapist to help me to take my thoughts captive. I need my therapist to help me to have gratitude, like give me the tools I need so
Mm-hmm.
I can stay on track. And I would say I allow myself to feel, I allow myself to grieve. I think sometimes we just try to ignore it, but I think a part of emotional maturity is realizing how you really feel and be able to deal with it with God, not ignoring it, not trying to make it last shorter, not trying to act like it's not there, but like fully allowing yourself to be like, I really feel sad, or I really feel angry, I really feel betrayed. And I ask myself, why do I feel this way? Like, is it some of the past? Is it like I really dig deep, almost like a personal therapist? And then I just allow myself to process and heal with God and people around me. So
That's awesome. I love
yeah.
your whole comprehensive approach to
Mm.
dealing with adversity. I mean, everything from, um, I think the start off is what you began with is I pray every day. I take time
Yeah.
out. So that's you saying, you know what? I'm not waiting for the storm to come. I'm
Mm.
staying ready. I'm putting on the
Yep.
full armor every day because
Yep.
while I don't know when it's going to come, I don't know, and when it comes, I don't know how heavy it's going to be, but I
Yeah.
don't concern myself with that because I stay ready.
Yep.
I think that's an important thing that you pointed out, and then of course all of the other aspects from, you know, um, not giving yourself permission to
Mhm.
grieve, to feel.
Mhm.
There's no harm. There's nothing wrong with you shedding tears, maybe
Yeah.
yelling out, punching a bag,
Yeah.
whatever that has to be to get that up out of you, because that's all that is poison inside of you if you hold
Yeah.
it in and don't release it. You need to have that. I love
Yep.
the fact that you pointed out, the value of therapy, and
Mhm.
specifically saying not only therapy but being, intentional as to making sure that you don't just roll with any therapist.
Yeah.
You need somebody who is a faith-based,
Mhm.
therapist who's going to identify, and as they give me tools to work with, they're
Yep.
doing it from a perspective with a godly foundation, with
Yeah.
godly principles in the tools that they're recommending, so that, as you said, I'm not out here just doing some old crazy stuff that's
Yeah.
gonna, maybe make me worse off than what I was.
Right. Right.
And then of course the circle of friends, making sure that you
Mhm.
have people that you can call out to and say,
Yep.
hey, I need your advice, I need your instruction, so those mentors, so those close friends who are
Mhm.
like-minded as you are, that can give you the proper support, the proper encouragement, rather than, unfortunately some of us have those circles. Yeah, they'll be there for you, but
Right.
the things that they're suggesting that you do to
Are
deal with
not
your
good.
challenges are not good. They're not of
Yeah.
God. And they oftentimes just end up being temporary band-aids to the
Yep.
situation. They don't help you process and work through it. So again, you very, very comprehensive approach. And for my listeners, you can definitely tap into what she's saying here if
Mhm.
you don't currently have a way of dealing with, your challenging moments. She's giving you some key things to take into consideration. And actually that kind of leads into my next question, which is, you know if you had the opportunity, as you reflect back in these 25 years of life, you've been
Mhm.
through a lot in just this short period of time. But if you had a chance to speak to that younger Taylor, who was prideful, feeling herself, thinking she was all that and then some, and not to
Right.
say that you weren't, but feeling
Right.
yourself to the point where you were taking your attention off of God, or
Yeah.
or taking into consideration again that we have people who are going to be listening to our podcast that they don't know how to deal with adversity. They're
Yeah.
stuck. Maybe they've been feeling themselves too,
Mhm.
and they haven't, they don't understand that, a transformation needs to happen, a change in mindset needs to happen. What would be your words of encouragement, your words of inspiration to, again, to younger Taylor, or to those listening right now that, they're just not doing practicing a healthy way in dealing with
Right.
handling adversity and challenges? They're kind of stuck and they're looking for a new, more positive, more upbeat way to kind of handle such moments. What would you say to them?
Yeah. My younger Taylor's a whole different girl. I would say the biggest thing for me is realizing just surrender to the fact that you're not in control. I think
Mm-hmm.
we do all these things to try to be in control and to get what we want, and we get so broken when they don't work out. Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing, is like, because even going towards these talents and things like that and trying to make myself some was a form of control for a certain feeling, or this internal thing. So I would say my biggest thing is like surrender to who has the control and learn to fall in love with him, not in like a corny way or like people say that, but like even if you don't know where to start, just pray. God hears you, like he will meet you where you're at. And I would say as long as you keep going, you haven't failed. I think I have had so many what is the word, misinterpretations of failure before. Like I've always thought, like, if this doesn't turn out a certain way, if it doesn't turn out the way I envisioned, I failed. But then it's like, if you shoot for the stars and you reach the moon, did you fail? Like, no.
Right.
Like, as long as you keep going, you're gonna get somewhere. I think that spiritually, I think whatever endeavors people have, that's just how it goes. I think the biggest thing we can do, that is failure, is to stop or give up. That's failure, because now you have God has nothing to work with. I would say that's a big thing as well. And learn to have godly ambition if you are a follower of Christ, over selfish ambition. One is going to give you a lot more peace. And two, God, like I said, he's the one in control. He's the one with the power. He's the one that sees the vision. Like, we are so limited as humans. And I don't know what this is that humans, including myself, we just think we are just like, because we are made in his image, we get a little twisted sometimes, thinking we are God. Like, he's
Right.
supposed to work for us, and it does not work that way. But we have godly ambition. It gives God the steering wheel, but then he does things way bigger than you could ever think. So, my encouragement is to know that if you've ever felt that something's been taken away from you, or you've been stripped of something, God is just trying to get your attention. He's trying to replenish it with things even better and even bigger than what you could have imagined. And I would also say, just humble yourself to ask for help. I believe in Acts 17:26 specifically. It talks about how God orchestrates the times and places. There is no such thing as a coincidence. Like, every single time I've gone through something, there's been at least one or two people that have either gone through it, or they have certain tools that are going to help me through it. Sometimes I haven't even realized it till I'm at the end of the trial, and I ask around, and they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "What the heck? I thought we always think we're the only one." I'm like, "What?" Like, every single time.
Mhm.
So I would say, ask for help. Obviously, be wise and discerning in who you ask and what you're asking. But I think sometimes we really feel like we have to do it alone, or we have to know all this stuff and do all this stuff. Just start and just ask for help. So that's what I would say.
Love that. Very well said. Very well said. I don't even have anything to add on that. You hit it. You hit it spot on. That's very very powerful. Taylor, this has been a thoroughly enjoyable time. Not only just catching up with you, but just hearing your wonderful testimony. Such a blessing to me,
Thank
to my
you.
listeners. I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. I'm so proud of you and how
Thank
God is
you.
moving in your life, and so it's just so excited to just see what else is coming
Yeah.
because, like I said earlier, you're just scratching the surface. I mean,
Mm,
there's so much in store, and I believe you're going to change so many lives along the way, and I'm just glad that you have that relationship with Him, and you've embraced it, and you're serious about your
mm-hmm.
walk.
Yeah.
You're committed, and I appreciate that. I respect that so
Mm,
much, so much. But as is customary here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, before I let you go, we do want to take an opportunity to love on you, to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to lift you up. So if you got anything professionally and or personally that's coming up, either going on right now or coming up down the road, please share that with us so we know all about it, how we can experience it, be a part of it, support it, follow it,
yeah.
contribute to it, or whatever it is that you need for that. Even if it's nothing more than just lifting you up in prayer for favor and success. So tell us what can we look forward to from you coming down the pipe.
Yeah, so next month I actually have two big projects that I'm dropping. I have an album coming out, and it's called Metamorphosis. It's about the whole stage of the caterpillar to the butterfly, but also spiritually how that relates. It's going to be on all platforms starting on March 7th. So you can find Metamorphosis. My stage name is Tay Soul. You can type it in as Tay Nicole and you'll find it. But it'll be on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, SoundCloud, all the things. And then I also have a poetry devotional book that I will be releasing on Amazon.
Oh
So
wow.
this will probably be towards mid next month, but it's called Deep Waters. And what it does is it helps you through a poem to kind of go through a spiritual principle. There's seven different basic principles that I touch on, and then there's three scriptures and three reflection questions for each scripture, and then like a space to just journal, to create, to write whatever you want. So look up Deep Waters by Taylor Burns. It should be just, you can get a paperback, hardback copy, but I think it'll really help people to dive deeper into their relationship with God and also their personal times with God.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, there you have it. She's told you how to get a hold of her music. She's got writings out there. She's doing her thing, and it's going to keep going. That momentum is going to be there. So make sure that you're following her, tapping into what she's got going on. I don't know how often you do live appearances anywhere or anything like that, but she told you where she's at. She's in the Chicago area,
Yeah.
so if you know anything about Chi-Town, it's always hopping, even on the Christian circuit. So she's doing big things, and please do support her. And if nothing else, just keep her lifted up in prayer, because God's hand is on you. And again, I'm just super excited to see more and more of what He does with your life. So it has
Thank
truly
you.
been a pleasure, Taylor. And for those of you who've tuned in, if you've enjoyed our broadcast, if you love what we're doing here, please share, please subscribe, please like, please comment, because this is what the Blessings in the Streets podcast is all about. We want to inspire, we want to encourage, we want to uplift. As you see, we want to be vulnerable in the sharing of our stories, not for shock effect, not for you to feel sorry for us, but to in hopes of you taking some gems, some nuggets of what we share and being able to apply it to your respective situations. Because the reality is we all go through something. Storms are
Yeah.
going to come our way. It's not a matter of if, but when. But how you respond to the storm matters so much. How you prepare, because you do have a pathway to prepare in advance for storms. It means
Yep.
so much. But the key component to it all, instead of us trying to put on our Superman or our Superwoman capes, build that relationship with God. He wants
Yep.
it. He wants to embrace you, love on you in ways that you can never imagine. And if you don't currently have a relationship with God, and I'm sure Taylor would co-sign on this, today is a mighty
Mhm.
fine day to make that decision.
Yep.
We're not telling you something that we heard. We're telling you something that we know from personal experience. It will change your life forever. So
Yep.
again, I definitely encourage you to embrace that relationship. If you've been fighting it, been running from it, run to it.
Mhm.
Don't try to have all the answers figured out, as Taylor shared earlier. Ask whatever questions you think you need to ask. Read, and
Yeah.
and if you can't figure it out, God will reveal to you. He will give you that understanding. And you just, the more you spend that time with Him, that you commit to the relationship, again, the miracles, the wonders, the just the beautiful works that will come up out of you is just beyond words, and beyond anything that you could ever imagine. So please don't take
Yeah.
that lightly. And so remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and I thank you so much again for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight, keep leaning on God, His understanding, His guidance, His direction. Allow Him to share that unconditional love for you and embrace you and comfort you and give you that strength and that courage to persevere even during the most darkest and difficult of times. I promise you, He will not lead you astray. These difficult moments, these storms, they are opportunities, not negative events. They are there to equip you to either be blessed or to equip you to be a blessing to someone else. In
Yep.
either situation, it's a win win. So make sure you latch on right now if you haven't already. And if you're already in that relationship, turn it up a notch and make it even more powerful, more impactful for the advancement of His kingdom work. So until next time, you take care of yourselves. Have a great rest of your evening. I look forward to seeing you next time.